Somebody's requested an upload, hello Phil, on what to do if you're on a large multi-lane roundabout and you get stuck in the wrong lane. How do you deal with getting yourself into the correct lane? Or how do you deal with the roundabout? So this is going to depend on all sorts of factors on the roundabout. If you find yourself in the wrong lane on a roundabout and it's not safe to move lanes or change direction, take the wrong exit is my advice, and then find somewhere to turn around and come back, or find a diversion route that will bring you back round. Most people these days use a sat-nav, and the sat-nav will usually auto redirect you to where you want to go, or it'll give you an option for being able to turn around safely. What I wouldn't suggest that you do is, if it's not safe to do so, trying to force your way into the lanes and causing a problem, because the last thing you want to do is antagonise the drivers that are travelling in the same direction as you. Now, I often think to myself that there are less and less people who are willing to take the wrong turning, turn round and come back again, than there are people who are trying to force themselves across lanes. Now, this is probably a false idea, because of all the people that do take the wrong exit, turn around and come back again, I can't count those, and I'm unaware that they've done it. But I'm very aware of a lot of people being very pushy when they've put themselves in the wrong lane, inconveniencing a lot of other road users, sometimes causing tailbacks in the lane that they're originally in before they're even able to force their way across into the other lane, or somebody's kind enough to let them in. And I see that a lot around Nottingham. So to me, it seems disproportionate of the number of people that are happy to inconvenience everybody else because they've made a mistake. If you've made a mistake, own it. Go up the wrong road, turn around and come back again. However, I understand that if you're talking about really big roundabouts where you may end up joining the motorway in the wrong direction, or travelling down a road where there aren't many opportunities to turn around and come back again, I can understand why some people would be reluctant to do it. And it might be possible that on those larger multi-lane roundabouts there's a bit more space and time to do something about being in the wrong lane. But this is going to be down to really good observations before you come onto the roundabout, as you come onto the roundabout, and whilst you're on it, as to knowing what is around you. So whether that's through observing who's joining the roundabout, or coming around it after you've decided to join it, so you've got an idea of who might be behind you and in which lanes. It's also going to require some really good lifesavers if you are planning to change lanes, to double check what's in your mirrors or not in your mirrors, because if you're on a roundabout and you're leaning, it might well be that your mirrors aren't picking up what you want to pick up. The question arose with the acknowledgement that we should be able to plan for which lane we should be in before we get to the roundabout through good use of road signs and road markings. And that is the case, so we should be able to plan for such eventualities, but every now and then you come onto a roundabout in what you think is the correct lane according to the lane markings, and it turns into something else. So I can understand how people get themselves in the wrong lane, or they don't quite follow where the lane markings go as they come around the roundabout, so they don't spiral out with them. They land in the wrong lane, perhaps inadvertently changing lanes. So one way or another, you found yourself in the wrong lane on a roundabout, and you need to change lanes in order to take your exit. Firstly, you need to know who's behind you and in which lane, whether anybody else is actually in the same predicament as you, so it might be that they're trying to do the same thing, or they might be trying to move in as you move out. They might have found themselves in the wrong lane likewise. You can only really determine whether it's safe to change lanes by mirrors and a shoulder check. I can't really give much more advice than that, other than to say try to avoid it in the first place, and be prepared to take the wrong turning, turn around and come back again, and try again. Your lifesaver will always be the most important thing that you do before you change position or change lane. And what you don't want to be doing is holding people back just because you've made a mistake. Now on a bike it's a little bit easier, so you might find that you're able to filter. If there's a traffic lighted roundabout, so a roundabout that's controlled by traffic lights, you might find that you can filter in between the gaps to get to where you want to be. But again, you need to be aware that you shouldn't be putting yourself in a position where you can't be seen or people don't realise that you've done it. I'm going to head up to a large multi-lane roundabout, the one that I can actually think of that's local to me, whilst my students are out on test, and just see if I can get myself in the wrong lane and get myself back into the right lane without looking like a numpty because I've got my instructor high vis on. Just to give you an example, but it's going to be very dependent on the situation at hand on any given day. So it's one of those questions that it's quite tricky to answer. I do find that in the busier cities, people are more likely to let you out than some other places. You know, places like London, where there's so much congestion, generally I find that people are more inclined to let you out because they'll be needing to be let out probably later on in their journey, and it just seems to be what goes around comes around a little bit more. In the less congested cities, then it's slightly different. But if you are significantly holding back the traffic by waiting to be let out, it's not a good thing. I want to go all the way around this roundabout and come back down this road. However, what I'm going to do is sit in this lane, pretending that I'm in the correct lane, and then we'll see if I can change lanes later. Now, if it's not possible to, because it's not safe to do so, or I'm going to inconvenience somebody else, I'm not going to change lanes. At the moment, using my mirrors, there's nothing coming up behind me in the lane to my right, okay? There is a Mercedes coming up relatively soon, so if I change lanes early, having used my mirrors, then I'm in the correct lane to do what I need to do. I'm going to keep it nice and tight. And this is really common where people land in the wrong lane, this bit here. It's only 2 lanes coming around to the right, but it opens up into 4 lanes. And it's really common for people in the left-hand lane to land in lane 3 or 4. Or if you're in lane 2, you should effectively be landing in lane 2, but even then I felt like I had to do a lifesaver to get there. So I moved early, having identified that I was in the wrong lane just as I came onto the roundabout. So I suppose the earlier you can be prepared for it, the easier it is to move. But at the end of the day, you need to do what is safest and what doesn't inconvenience other people or anger other people. It's definitely easier to change lanes on a bike. It's definitely easier to filter past and squeeze yourself into a smaller gap, but you still need to be doing what's safe. Don't put yourself at unnecessary risk just because you might have to extend your journey time by 10 or 15 minutes because you got it wrong. If you know you're going to be going on a long journey or a journey where you're unfamiliar with the roads, give yourself extra time. Allow yourself time to take a few wrong turnings here and there, and then you won't be rushing, you won't be getting stressed out.